One thing a lot of people noted was Destiny talking big after I was gone, but not while I was on, doing the same thing now. When I'm having a conversation with someone, I'll be polite while you're here, but like I can't just like call you dumb, like to you. That's not very productive for a conversation. We're never gonna agree on anything, my dude. I think it's better for you to just, you can sit in your little bubble and call me racist or whatever, and then we just kind of move from there. I can't do this, guys. I can't put myself through this. I don't think I can handle this again. I'm gonna have a panic attack mid-conversation, dude. For my own, like, personal mental health, I don't know if I can. I think I've proven my. You're dumb, sir. I think I've proven my point. Let's move on. Ugh. He's saying you only talk big because you left the stream. I mean, if you join a room, I'll drag you in. If you really want to chat again. But I mean, since we've had our first conversation, if you really want to, dude. He said you had no balls. I mean, I'm just trying to be polite. Like, oh God, let me go get it. Let me go soy boy it up. I'm gonna do 2 soylents today, so I can have all the soy flooding through my body. I'll be right back. Should I be? I don't even know. Yeah, hold on 1 second. I can't do this. Oh no. Everybody, let's all relax ourselves, okay? My dude.
All right, we on?
We're on. We're live.
All right, so what's going on, man? How's everything?
I'm doing great. A little bit scared now, but here I am.
Oh no, man, that's all good. Don't be scared, man.
No,
you know,
well, no, it's not all
easy.
good. I'm actually like I'm ready to go now. Okay, if we do this again, okay, you have to let me talk because you talked like fucking 3 times as much as me last time, and I let you say a lot of really dumb shit, and I can't let you do that again. Okay.
What did I say that was dumb? Why am I dumb?
So my problem with conservatives is that you guys have like no factual basis for anything. You always like apply to like your fucking feelings and emotions all the time. And I don't care about that when I have these conversations. I want to have fact-based conversations, not like here's a story about my grandpa and this proves my point. Do you know how frustrating it is?
What did I say that was false?
It's not about whether or not your statements are true or false. It's about whether or not you're making rational arguments. So for instance,
So doesn't it matter if I'm saying something that's true?
Nope.
Or false?
Nope.
So if a statement is true, it doesn't matter?
It depends on, it doesn't, because a statement is true, doesn't mean it supports an argument. So for instance, if somebody says that meat is unhealthy for you, and I say, well, I like meat, that's a true statement, but it doesn't speak to the argument of whether or not meat is healthy or unhealthy for you. So if I argue so if I say something like redlining was a policy that existed that discriminated against black people, not people with bad credit, but black people, and you say, well, my grandfather owned a house in West Virginia, that says nothing to my argument.
Well, what I told you was about redlining. It was largely based on credit, and it did not just affect it did not just affect blacks either. It also affected whites.
Okay, you know that there are documents online that exist right now where we can both go and look through documents that are still actually in use in some place today that say like no black people, not people with bad credit, but no black people. Like,
well, okay, but it was largely based on credit, and it did not just affect blacks. So was redlining only applied to black people, or did it apply to people that were white in some cases?
Do you really think that redlining was generally done was generally done to just people with poor credit and didn't really generally apply to black people? Or do you think that was mainly black people and maybe there were some cases of white people being discriminated against?
Well, it was people from all different walks of life, but it was largely based on credit.
Okay, why do you think that no historian would back that point up? Why do you think that everybody in history like disagrees with you? Does that make you uncomfortable?
Everybody in history?
Sure. I mean, so if we were to go and read any article about redlining, it's going to talk about how redlining was targeted towards black people and the horribly discriminatory effects it had on black communities.
So you can speak to all the articles that exist on redlining that exist all over the internet. You're confident when you say that?
Fairly well. I'm sure you could find like a Breitbart article that's
All
written
right, so
something
let's
about
not
it.
say that all articles are going to support your claim.
Okay,
Let's just
most
bump that back a
credible
little bit.
historians or most credible sociologists that are talking about the practice of redlining are going to be saying that redline, like I'm pretty sure we went to the Wikipedia page. It's going to talk right in there about how redlining
Oh,
was
Wikipedia, that's a great source of information, isn't it?
a lot better than whatever you're sourcing that says it was just for credit. I mean, if you don't like the Wikipedia article, we can go straight to the sources from the Wiki article. But yeah, I would consider it a decent starting
If
point.
you say that most historians would say that, then why don't all historians say that?
Because I'm sure you can probably find exceptions in any academic field about some things. I'm sure that I could probably find. Why? I don't know. Because some people are crazy. Because some people have. I don't know. There's a million reasons why. I could probably find. I guarantee you. I bet my life on it. I could probably find a physicist out there that believes the Earth is flat. I'm sure they exist. But why would I go against consensus there unless I'm pushing an agenda?
You can prove that the Earth is not flat. I mean, that's a different thing than redlining.
I mean, I can prove to you that. I mean, does anybody have a link to the site where you can go back and read like all the documents that still exist today that can show you like how they specifically call out black people in the document? I mean, we can go and read these now. This isn't contested history. Like the thing that bothers me is when I'm talking about this isn't like something that's up for debate. It's not even like a thing that like people like really.
Show me the documents. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But show me the documents.
All right, hold on. Let me try and find this. If anybody has a post for this, there's like a really sick. There's like a website where you can go online and you can actually read like a whole bunch of documents that have been uploaded. But I mean, I'm kind of on the spot, but I'll try to find it. Give me a minute.
You know, there's articles that also say that redlining is still alive, but how is that possible when it's illegal to do that?
Because people can discriminate without being overt about it. For instance, sometimes if people get a job application, they might toss that if the name is of a black person, as opposed to if it's a white-sounding name. So you could argue that there's forms of discrimination like that, which have been well studied. This isn't controversial either.
Okay, so is that only something that affects black people, or can whites be discriminated against in the same way?
I'm not aware of any studies that show that widespread white people have been discriminated against in job interviews.
I didn't ask you about if it's widespread or not, and I didn't ask you of a study. I just said, can whites be discriminated against when it comes to jobs?
I don't
care. Because you got a lot of blacks. Because you got a lot of. I mean, why don't you care?
Because I'm looking for.
Sir, hold on. If you don't care about that, then why do you care about the converse? Why do you care about blacks being discriminated against, but not whites or anybody else being discriminated against? Shouldn't it be wrong to discriminate against anybody if you're against discrimination?
Sure, but that's not the conversation we're having right now.
Well, what are we talking about then?
I'm talking about widespread policies that impact large groups of people across the United States. Not is there a chance that a white person somewhere might discriminate? That's possible, and if it happens, yeah, I'm against that. It's wrong, but I don't care about these one-off examples.
The article I'm talking about says that redlining still exists today, so that's not a policy, nor is it widespread.
What article? What is this? I don't understand. Are you proving my point, or is this supposed to prove your point?
Nah, the article says that redlining is still alive and well. Although that's illegal, you can't do that. So, I mean, the point is that you can find an article that says anything that, oh, redlining is real, it affects these people. You can find anything to back up whatever you want to back up.
Can you? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and if you don't have it, that's fine.
I'm gonna send this to you right now in Discord.
Okay, yeah. Because
you're right there.
You're using like the Russian propaganda line where you're trying to say that like all articles are of equal credibility. Like,
nah, I'm just saying that sometimes it doesn't really matter what you can bring up. You can bring up anything to support your claim.
That's not true.
For the most part, I think that
no, that's absolutely not true. That is one of the most anti-intellectual positions I've ever heard in my entire life.
Why is it not true?
Because we should be able to agree on what reality is. And if something is well studied, we should have a decent consensus on what is actually happening. This idea that all evidence is equal evidence or that all things can be possible at any point in time is totally absurd.
I didn't say all evidence is equal evidence. I'm just saying that you can bring up anything to support your claim.
Those two statements sound the same to me. That sounds
I mean, they sound the same, but they sound the same to you, but that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, when you say anybody could bring up when anybody can bring up something to support their claim, that makes it sound like all evidence is equally viable.
That's your opinion, and that's fine, but that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, that's what's heavily implied by what you're saying. So let me ask you this.
Opinion.
No, that's what you're implying. I think
that's your opinion. I'm saying that's not what I'm applying. That's your opinion.
Do you think that all evidence is equal then?
No, and I didn't say it was.
Then
So I
why
don't
would you
understand
care
why
if
you're asking me.
anybody could bring up a random article to support something? What does that have to do with anything? Do you think that
That's my point.
Okay, do you think that when I say that redlining is something that's well researched and most people are going to, do you think I'm just citing random articles there? Or do you think that's like a decent consensus of like sociology that they would agree that like redlining existed and it discriminated against black people?
Well, I mean, you are able to deduce that from what you have been able to research. But from when I've been able to research, I know that it was largely based on credit and it did not just affect blacks. And I
Okay.
can find information to back up what I say, and you can find information to back up what you say. And
Do you if you
that's
want,
correct.
do you want to have like we could have a structured debate on this if you want, where we could actually both research sources and because like there's you're speaking against historical consensus. Like you're not going to find sociologists that are going to sit here and legitimately. You might be able to find like a random, maybe like a Thomas Sowell article or whatever that says like, oh well, I don't think that lefty, actual, educated, intelligent people.
What's wrong with Thomas Sowell? This is a very educated man. He's very, very well respected, an author. I mean, like, why would he not be a good source to go to?
If he stands at ends with like every other person in the field, I'm going to lean with more the field than that one guy that.
But so just because a lot of people disagree with him, that makes him wrong?
That's not exactly what I'm saying.
So what are you saying?
If I were to get a room full of 100 physicists and they were to give you their interpretation of quantum mechanics, and then a religious person would say, well, I think it's like this, and I would say, I'm probably going to side with the scientific people, would you literally tell me, oh, so just because all of them are saying it, you think it's right? Do you think that academic consensus exists, or do you think that's just a big meme?
Academic consensus. I mean, you can have a consensus, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. I mean, the consensus at one point was that the Earth, or the sun revolved around the Earth, not the other way around. That was a consensus at one point. That doesn't mean that, it's infallible, that can never be disproven.
Okay, but
And
the best people at the time.
The argument you're making is saying, oh, because most people disagree with Thomas Sowell, people that you have been able to identify on the internet or whatever, doesn't make Thomas Sowell automatically wrong.
Okay, firstly, that the not heliocentric, an Earth-centric universe was a religious idea, not a scientific idea. Firstly, secondly, that idea is not as wrong as thinking the sun is moving randomly throughout the sky. In some ways, from our perspective, it's correct. So the idea that the Earth was the center of the universe isn't even necessarily 100% wrong. In some ways, you could argue it. Okay, we're more accurate today. But the process of our scientific investigations becoming more and more and more accurate has happened because we've listened to scientific consensus as time has gone on. If there's like one person standing against like an odd,
So the consensus changed.
it evolves. It doesn't just like 180 typically.
It changed.
Do you think that all
We're
change is
saying
the
the same
same, or?
I mean, evolution, it implies change, doesn't it not? You have to, if you evolve, you change. You're not going to stay the same if you evolve.
No, but you're
So you
typically
changed.
moving in like a single direction, or you're moving in a certain direction. You don't just like 180 on all of your previous opinions and then just do like whatever. Like just because the consensus changed at one point in time doesn't mean that all things are all of a sudden equally viable.
So the point is that a consensus can't change. It's not set in stone necessarily.
Sure, but I ain't a
Alrighty.
real.
So that
So
brings me to
every-
my point. That brings me to my point about Thomas Sowell. I don't think it makes any sense to say, oh, just because a lot of people disagree with him, that he's automatically wrong.
Okay, but
I
the
mean-
fact that every other educated person in this field disagrees with him, and he's the one person standing at ends, as a layman, I'm going to side with the majority consensus in the
That's
field.
one
That can
person
point.
that we can identify. That's one person we can identify right now. That doesn't mean he's the only person. It's just one person that you can identify at this moment as we're talking.
So when you look at like any of these documents that exist that show that like black people are not allowed to rent things here, or that we don't like, do these things, are they all? Do you think they're fake documents, or?
Well, not necessarily. I think that racism, like I said in the previous discussion we had, racism most certainly does exist, and it existed much more back then, especially prior to 1960. But I still say that redlining was largely based on credit. And one thing that you may not agree on the credit part, but one thing that we both have to agree on, which is fact, is that redlining did not just impact black people. It impacted a lot of different people, including whites, recent immigrants, Hispanics, Asians, etc., Jews especially.
Okay, but it disproportionately impacted black people compared to white people. There might have been like an absolute number of white people that were impacted that might be more than blacks, but it disproportionately impacted black people.
Okay, I'm not really sure if that's 100% true or false. Let's just say it's true. Now, did it impact any other racial group in a way that was worse than whites?
Maybe, probably. I think Filipinos and Asian people were discriminated against as well. Sure.
I think we should look into that and see what's going on with it. It could have impacted Jews. It could have impacted Hispanics, Asians, and then we need to look at how that affected them. And if it did affect them in a negative way, why are Black people still struggling with what we're struggling with today? I think this whole redlining excuse is just kind of worn out, played out, honestly, because during that time, closer to the end of slavery, in a time when there was much more racism, segregation, Jim Crow, all of that, you can look at all these metrics and see that the Black community was in a much better state than it is today.
I don't want to talk. Just because more people were employed doesn't mean they were in a. This sounds like a nah, if I were to go to
it's just one metric you can measure, but there's many other metrics you can measure too.
Like, it sounds like I could make the argument that we should go back to slavery because Black people were well-fed, were well-nourished, were kept in good homes, had clothes, and the employment rate was 100%. Why not? I'm sure that there were a lot of Black people that lived happily under slavery. Why not?
Slavery, you're talking about people that are in prison, essentially. That's not the same thing as being free.
Who cares? If they're employed, if they're happy, I'm sure there were some. I'm sure there were a decent amount of Black people that were happy living under their slave owners.
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that are free. You can't compare free people to prisoners. It's not the same thing.
I mean, are you really free in today's society? You still have to work to pay your fucking bills. Sometimes you got to work really shit jobs.
You have more choices than if you are a prisoner. If you are incarcerated, you're not free. You can't just do whatever you want to do.
Well, do you think somebody would rather be like a happy slave living on a plantation where their owner's taking care of them, or would rather be miserable in today's Black society where everybody is like born out of wedlock and there's drugs?
I think any man, woman, child would much rather be free, regardless of what the situation is.
Okay. Then if you believe that, why do you keep citing me that, like, in the 50s, Black people were better off than they are today? Because in the 50s...
Slavery was over.
No, but legal discrimination and segregation and shit existed.
It doesn't mean that it was slavery.
So anything short of slavery is okay with you? What is this argument?
I mean, what are you talking about? Slavery.
So, like, if I tell you you're Black, you can't live in this part of the neighborhood, you're like, okay, well, that kind of sucks, but it's okay. It's not slavery. Like, what kind of argument is this?
Nah, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's perfect, but you have imperfect laws that are going on right now. That doesn't mean that we can just compare today to slavery. It doesn't make any sense.
Why do you keep saying that? Like, because some things are fucked right now. We can't talk about how fucked things were in the past. What is this?
I didn't say that.
You just said that. You just said that.
You need to relax.
I'm super relaxed.
Just breathe.
I'm breathing right now. I'm having a hard time dealing with
relax. Just chill.
It's dealing with irrational people is very difficult for me. I'm sorry. I'm trying my hardest.
I'm over here chilling, man. You seem like you're just.
I know you're chilling because ignorance is bliss. So of course you just say dumb shit after dumb shit, and of course you're super chill because it all makes sense to you.
Right now, you just reacting in an emotional way.
I'm not. I'm emotional because people being really ignorant is like really upsetting to me. I acknowledge that.
I'm just going to say what I had to say, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to calm down.
Okay.
Basically, it's like this.
Yeah.
You can to compare today to slavery. It's not the same thing as talking about. It's like, look, today we don't have what was going on back then. We just don't have it. It's not there. We're not in bondage. We're not in chains. We're not enslaved. So to say, oh, well, you could just be on a slave plantation rather than living today just doesn't make any sense, man. At the end of the day, we're free. Slavery has been over with. You just got to keep moving forward, man.
Okay, but freedom is on a spectrum. Do you acknowledge that like it's not just free or not free? There are like degrees of freedom. So like not being a slave is probably better than being a slave, okay? Having economic opportunity is probably more free than not having economic opportunity. Being able to purchase property where you want and not having a bank deny you a loan because you're Black is probably more free, right? Like freedom exists on a spectrum, and we're still pushing towards getting more freedom for groups of people in the U.S. It's not like, well, there are no more slaves, so we've solved this issue, time to move on.
Well, how are we not free today? I mean, how are Black people not free today?
Black people are born in disproportionately fucked circumstances compared to white people. They've got access to worse education, worse job markets. They're treated horribly in the criminal justice system. This housing they live in is often substandard and contaminated with lead. I mean, what do you mean? There's like a million different things we can talk about.
So, I mean, whose fault is that we have these conditions that we live in?
A lot of it is white people. Sure.
So should I blame you?
Not me. I mean, I didn't do it particularly, but I inherited the advantages of that.
So who do we blame?
I don't care about blaming people. I'm not interested in you guys.
You just said we should blame whites, didn't you?
No, I didn't say we should. You asked me whose fault it was, and I gave you an answer. But in terms of designing policy, can I finish in like 2 seconds? I don't want to run down the fucking. I don't want to run down the dumb fucking conservative line of like who's who to blame. I don't care about that.
If anybody's, you just said it.
No. I didn't. That's what you're obsessed with because those are your talking points that you fucking memorized, and you can't think like 2 seconds outside of them. Okay.
I asked you a question and you answered it.
Yeah, because you're trying to get an answer to win your dumbass argument, okay? What I'm saying is that when you enact policy, I'm upset because you're so dumb and it frustrates the fuck out of me, okay? That's why I'm upset.
Why am I dumb? You've not been able to express yourself very clearly.
Because you keep talking over me with really dumb talking points. That's why I can't talk. Can I talk?
You're emotionally driven.
Are you okay? No, I'm not. My blood pressure is rising right now, okay? So
hey, I don't want to get you injured, man.
Just
relax.
Yeah. So the problem is, so you ask me like, whose fault is it? I could tell you whose fault it is, but that's not the same as what should we do. You're the one trying to bridge that gap. Oh, well, you said it's white people's fault, so that means we got to hold them accountable. I never said that. What I think is that we should probably try to remedy most of the bad situations that exist right now in black communities in whatever ways we can. And in order to do that, you kind of have to recognize what those problems are. So if I say like, hey, black people have a lot of issues with housing and education and all this stuff, and then someone like you comes out and says, oh, no, they don't. Okay, well, we can't really fix that problem if we don't actually acknowledge that problem exists.
All right. So let's have a productive discussion. What should we do to fix the black community? What are tangible things we could put on the table right now that would help fix the black community?
Sure. So here are some things that I know are problems. The lead thing is a problem, okay? Places like Flint, Michigan, or I think it's like fucking isn't it like up to fucking 5% of kids or one there was a hugely fucked up statistic are consuming like unhealthy levels of lead in the US. Does anybody know? Was it 5? I don't think it was 5%. That sounds really high. But that lead shit has to be stopped, okay? So wherever the fuck in the US we've got these housing and water situations with a lot of lead in them, that shit has to go away, okay? That destroys a child's future. Those kids in Flint, Michigan, those kids are fucked for life. That's not something you can undo. When you get lead in your system at an early age, you're more prone to violence, your education levels decrease, your IQs, it's super bad. So that's one thing, okay? Second thing is criminal justice shit and war on drugs. This whole like marijuana shit is fucking over black people so much more than white people, and it's fucked. It needs to stop. It has to stop. When you look at reported usage rates of marijuana, white people do it just as much as fucking black people. I haven't seen anything that contests that claim, but black people get locked up like fucking 10 times more for it than white people. Why? It's not good policing. It's not causing problems in the country. Like it has to stop, and it's fucking over some groups of people disproportionately than others. Do you disagree with that?
Okay, you're talking about the marijuana usage rates. The usage rate is not the same thing as who's selling it. So I don't understand why that stat keeps getting brought up when you're talking about marijuana. But the reality is, when you're talking about drugs, the bigger issue is the legal drugs that get sold on the street illegally. Vicodin, Percocet, Xanax, etc., Oxycontin. That's the big drugs that are going on right now. I'm gonna ask you this question. Do you know anybody black that's in jail right now?
I don't know many people personally, so no.
I got 20 black friends that's in jail right now. Nobody that I know, and people in the chat, oh, personal anecdotes. No, I'm just giving you a personal story because when people talk about the black community, I am the black community. So I think that I'm a good representative of the black community.
What you just said is not true.
What
you are not representative of a class of people. That's not how data works.
Sir, for right now, in this conversation, it's only me and you. So for this conversation, I'm the black community.
Okay, wait, I lied then. I actually know 50 black friends, and all of them are in jail because a cop was racist to them. Do I win the argument now? Do you see how ridiculous this is?
No, but see, you're not even letting me get my point out.
Because I don't care what your point is, because you're basing it on anecdote.
If you don't care what my point is, then why have a discussion?
Because I thought you were going to give me better arguments than I've got 20 friends.
I didn't even get my argument out.
Okay, so I'm sorry. You can get your argument out, but know that I have 50 black friends that are in jail just because cops are racist.
Why would you say that? So you're not even like, let's just be honest with each other. I'm not a liar. Are you a liar?
No, I'm not lying at all. I have 50 black friends that are really in jail right now because cops are racist. That's the only reason. And the judges were racist too.
But why? But what's the point in lying? Like,
I'm not lying. I know a lot of black people around here. I do a lot of community outreach.
You just said that you lied.
I just didn't want to bring it up before because no, I was uncomfortable bringing it up before because I didn't want people in my chat to know that there's a soup kitchen that I volunteer every Saturday at, and I don't want people to know. That's why I don't stream. And in that soup kitchen, I met a lot of black people, and I know 50 of them that are locked up right now. And I went and I talked to all of them, and they said that it was because of a racist white cop. The same fucking cop did it too. I'm trying to file a case against him. I'm not lying at all. So go ahead. What's your argument, sir?
Okay. So what are they in jail for?
The cop was racist. He pulled him over because he said he smelled marijuana, and then he planted marijuana in their cars, and he got his dog to sniff it, and now they're all in jail right now. The same story from every single one of my friends. I swear to God.
So why isn't this case in the news? 50 people? Why isn't this case in the news?
Probably because it's taken over by all the other black people that are getting shot by cops, not just locked up by them right now. I tried to get some news play for it,
really?
but nobody paid attention to it.
Oh, so blacks, all we do, we just get shot by cops, and it's not even our fault. We don't do anything to provoke the situation.
Do you really think that so if we were to go through video after video after video of like college kids getting ripped out of their cars and tackled by 30 cops, do you think that all of these were justified? Do you think that black people just do this to themselves all the time?
I didn't say everything was justified. I'm just saying, like, out of the black people that get shot by cops, you think that they're all just, innocent school children that didn't do anything wrong. It just happened to get shot for no reason. Is that what's going on?
Not all of them. I'm sure that some of them earned it, but some of them are definitely fucked. The Trayvon Martin shit, is not a good thing.
Trayvon Martin did not get shot by a cop.
No, but he got shot by another dude that a lot of people seem to defend, a guy that fucking hunted him down in a neighborhood to get him.
He wasn't a police officer, though. I mean, people get shot by regular citizens every day, so that was a bad
comparison. Okay. We can go through like video after video after video of like people.
In Chicago, you got like 30 people that got shot over the weekend. So why just mention Trayvon Martin because a person looked like he might have been white even though he wasn't? That's not even. It doesn't make any sense. Let's talk about police officers, not just random.
Okay, you asked me if I think that black people get shot by the cops unfairly. Do I think that every single black person that gets shot is unfair? No. Do I think it happens to more black people than white people? Yes.
Well, I mean, by the numbers, more whites get shot by cops than blacks. By the numbers, by the actual stats.
Do you know the difference between per capita and absolute?
Yes, I do.
Then why are you giving me by the numbers, by the absolute number? Like,
well, you said more blacks. You didn't say.
I'm sorry
as
because
a percentage or
I know
per capita.
it's because I just talked to somebody that was liberal, and I'm used to people like automatically understanding what I'm saying. When I use a number like that, it's very clear to any educated person.
I don't know what you're saying unless you say specifically.
It's per capita. That's what every person talking about stats would say. It would be a per capita thing. So, for instance, yes,
I'm not going to say that all the time.
That's because you're obviously not an educated person. Okay, I understand this. Trust me, I understand this. Okay, this is why.
I mean, you don't know anything about me.
I know enough based on the arguments that you've made that you have no idea how data works.
If I was to give a stat, I would say per capita if I mean per capita.
That's great.
I'm going to mean what I say.
And I understand. And you should, especially for your audience, because I'm sure a lot of them have no fucking idea how any stats or numbers work. So if you do, that's great. But when you people like you try to say things like.
You people?
Yeah, you people. Like uneducated people that make racist arguments, whether you intend to or not.
Why am I uneducated?
Because you don't know how numbers or stats work.
Sure, I do. I know what per capita means.
Okay, well then what about the first number that we argued about last time, where you said that since more black babies are being aborted than born, first of all, that was only in New York, by the way, that means that as many women getting abortions that want to are getting them, when those stats aren't connected at all. You felt like you won that argument.
You said that.
No, you said that because more black babies are being aborted than born, that must mean that as many black people want abortions as happening.
I did not say that. You said that. I said this. Since you have more black babies being aborted than born in New York, and the same stat can be seen across the nation, and you have had 20 million black babies aborted since 1973 Roe v. Wade, obviously there's not a problem with access to abortion.
Okay,
That's a different thing.
Now, okay, I want to talk about this one number, okay? Because this drives me crazy. You understand that. Let's say that I had a community where 30 million people wanted to get abortions and 10 million babies were born and only 20 million people got abortions, okay? Does that mean that we had as many abortions as we wanted to because more were aborted than were born? Or does that stat actually have nothing to do with that?
Well, I mean, where did that stat come from? You just pulled that out of the sky.
No, I'm just because you...
My stats come from actual hard numbers. You pulled that stat out of nowhere. 20 million black babies have been aborted since 1973 Roe v. Wade. There's only 36 million black people, so a logical.
No, it's not logical. Don't say logical. It's not logical. It's a non sequitur. No.
I've not gotten my point out yet, sir. You don't even know what I'm going to say. I need you just to relax until I get my point out. Now, if you have 20 million black babies that have been aborted in about 45 years, and there's only 36 million black people total in the nation, that will point to there not being an issue with access to abortion.
No, it doesn't.
A logical person would make that deduction. If you're driven
no,
by
they
emotion,
wouldn't.
If you're driven by emotion, you wouldn't see it.
That's not deductive. That's not how deductive reasoning works at all. I can formulate your argument and premise, conclusion, and anybody that has studied philosophy or argument.
If you heard that, logically, if you heard that, then what I said makes sense. Come on. What you're saying is, well, just because you had that many black babies aborted doesn't mean that everybody who wanted an abortion got one. but you have no idea of knowing how many people actually wanted an abortion. You have no clue.
But neither do you. That's the point.
I didn't say I did. I'm just pointing to obvious numbers. When you have a birth rate that's lower than replacement, 20 million black babies out of 36 that are actually 36 million. I mean, come on. Like, logically, just think about it for a moment. Just think about it.
You're not being logical.
You're not being logical. You're being emotionally driven. I could tell by how you're talking. You sound like you're nervous. You got like a bunch of like nervous movement and laughter. I can see you right now on the stream.
Because what you're saying is literally irrational. You don't even. Is this like this is like Dunning-Kruger? Like right now, I'm watching it happen in front of me. Like, okay, so your first premise is that more black babies are aborted than born, right?
In New York in 2012.
Sure.
That's what I have data for.
And then your second thing is that if more people are born, if more people are aborted than born, then that must mean that everybody that wants an abortion has gotten an abortion. So then your conclusion is that therefore.
I didn't say that.
Okay, I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said that obviously there's not a problem with access to it.
Okay,
it's not
obviously, okay. So saying there's not an
restricted.
issue with access means that as many people want abortions as are getting them. Is that not what access is?
It's not an issue with access. Like, that's not, I didn't say that everybody who wanted an abortion was able to get one. I mean, there could be many reasons why somebody who wanted an abortion actually didn't have it. That's not the same thing as having access to it.
Wait, can you explain to me what the difference is?
Having access means that it's easily available.
So then why wouldn't you get one if you wanted one? If
it's a lot of different reasons. Maybe somebody has to change their heart. Maybe somebody convinced them not to have it. Maybe they just didn't want to go through with it. They got afraid. Anything could have happened. It doesn't mean just because it didn't have an abortion when they wanted one that it was a problem with having access to it.
Okay, but that's not about access. That means those people didn't want to get an abortion.
No, because they wanted an abortion, but then something prevented them from actually going through with it. It doesn't mean that they did not have access to it. Access, in the sense of what I'm talking about, and I think most people that are thinking logically will understand is it, I don't want to say easy, but is it accessible? Is it an abortion clinic near you? There's actually an interactive map that says, I think 75 to 80% of Planned Parenthoods are located in Black or Hispanic communities. So it's not a problem of being able to get to a place if it's, far away. Generally, there's not a problem with access to abortion. That can be proven by the location of the Planned Parenthood and also the sheer numbers. Your
argument does not logically follow. Stop saying logically. You keep saying that word and you don't know what it means.
I mean, I know what it means.
No, you don't.
You're having like an emotional breakdown.
I'm not having an emotional breakdown. It's your argument is de facto. Do you?
You can keep saying that. You can keep saying that to convince yourself.
Here's a question.
To convince those who are listening, but
no. I have a legitimate question for you. Can we find, or you can find right now? Can you get somebody that studied philosophy to come in here and break this argument down? Please. Just a third party to do it because I'm too emotional. I'm too liberal. I'm too far gone. Can you bring like somebody that has studied philosophy into here to break that argument down? Are you okay with me pulling somebody from chat to explain this?
To explain what?
Why I believe your argument is completely irrational?
What for backup for you? I mean,
okay, you can choose the guy. That's what I'm saying. You could choose him. Can you find?
I don't need anybody to back me up. I'm good.
Okay, but don't you think it'd be better if we got a third party to reconcile this?
Nah, you said that you want somebody to explain your argument.
No. Okay, not me. I need somebody to explain your argument for me. Can you find somebody that has a background in philosophy?
I don't need anybody to explain my argument. I think I explained it pretty well. Now, whether you agree or not, that's on you. I can't control what you agree with or not.
Here's the problem with your argument, okay? Just because more women got abortions than had babies that were born doesn't mean that all of the women that wanted abortions got them. If you wanted
that's not the point that I'm making.
No,
You're making that
is the point. You're saying that access is fine, but what I'm saying is that if you want to, can I please
that's the point that I'm making?
Can I just finish?
When I'm not saying that's the point that I'm making. Let's just stick to the facts that I've said.
Let's just please finish this one. I don't think I've ever got to finish this point. If you wanted to prove your point to me, what you would have to say is, here is the data that points to 98% of the black women that wanted abortions were able to get abortions. That would be the data that you would have to point me to. Like, there was a Gallup survey that was done, and of all the black women that were surveyed, 97% of them said that they were able to get the abortion they wanted to. That would be the data that you would point me to.
But see, that's not the point that I'm making. You're making that point.
Your point that you're making is that more black babies were aborted than were born. That's the only point you can make with your data. But you're trying to take that and say there is no problem with access. You can't make that claim with the number that you've given me.
how can it be a problem with access with the sheer amount of abortions that have happened in the Black community, and also with all the abortion clinics that are disproportionately located right in Black and Hispanic communities?
Because
how can that, it doesn't
just
make any
because a
sense
lot of
logically.
abortion stop saying logically.
It is logic.
It's not logical. It's emotional. It's intuitive. It's irrational.
You can try to discredit what I'm saying by laughing when I say logically, but it doesn't make your argument any stronger. At the end of the day, I think logically thinking people understand what I'm saying. I think we should move on from that topic because we kind of beating that dead horse to the ground and
No, but this is like
it and bringing it.
This is the problem. This is the problem is that I don't think you are fundamentally capable of understanding a rational argument. And this is like the most simple issue.
That's your opinion.
It's not an opinion. You can bring in
your opinion.
if you find anybody that knows
You
formal.
said I don't think you're able. That means it's an opinion.
Okay, I have inductively reasoned based on what you've said
Another
that you were
opinion. Like I said, let's move on to the next topic. How about that?
But why would I? If I don't think you can form a coherent, a sound argument, why would I move on to something more complicated? This is simple.
Let's talk about marijuana.
Why?
I mean, why not? You brought it up.
Because you
don't wanna
can't
talk about it now?
comprehend how the most incredibly basic argument that you're giving me is unsound and irrational, and you want to move on to something more complicated than that? Why would I torture myself even more?
I mean, how is it complicated? Or maybe you just don't want to have the conversation. I understand. I mean,
I don't. What is the argument going to be that the KKK brought joints for Black people to smoke and they were actually friendly about it? I don't even want to hear the crazy fucking stories that you have concocted to make it so that.
The story I told was a true story. Just because you've not heard it, just because you think that somehow white people are infallible and these hate groups are just undefeatable, doesn't mean that my story was incorrect.
No, but I don't care about your story.
Maybe you just think that white groups are just undefeatable and that no Black person can survive.
No, obviously Black people are surviving. I'm talking to you right now. Obama was the president. There are famous NBA athletes and fucking actors and successful Black businessmen, so clearly they can survive. That's never been my claim. But when you make the claim that the KKK brought your grandma fucking Christmas presents, I don't know what am I supposed to take from that?
They brought toys and food to the Black community. I mean, that's a true story.
What is your point in bringing that up? Are you trying to say that the KKK
why does it trigger you so much?
What is the point of bringing up that anecdote that the KKK was by and large like a Black-friendly, Black advocacy group organization?
I didn't say they were Black friendly.
So why bring up the anecdote?
They were a terrorist organization. I'm just trying to tell you that the KKK was not just this omnipotent group that just killed everybody Black that came across their path.
Sure, and I'm sure I could probably make similar arguments.
And I also brought up the point to explain to you that the Black community fared well during that time, not because it was that time, but we weren't just this hopeless group that had no way of being able to press forward in life, like you're trying to paint it, which is what I don't like about a lot of liberals. They paint Black people as victims that can never get over their own past and they can't do anything for themselves.
Why? That's reality. That's everybody.
Oh, so is that what you think? Okay,
yes.
Well, I'm glad we got it on record.
What do you think we got on record?
That you said that Black people are just hopeless victims that can't do anything for themselves.
Yep.
And we just...
Guess what, though? I think the exact same shit about white people, too. That's the thing you guys don't understand. When you try to pull this, like, you're the real racist because you think Black people can't overcome their... Oh, come on, dude. That's what you're trying to get me now, is you're the real racist. I read all your comments, dude. The bigotry of low expectations. Here's the sad truth, my dude, is that the bigotry of low expectations exists for all people. The difference is most white people have way better fucking families than most Black people. So when you say, do I have low expectations for Black people overcoming their environment? Of course I do. But I feel the same way about white people the same. Like, poor white people that are born in fucked up trailer homes and shit are probably gonna have really fucking bad outcomes too. And guess what? They do. And economically, we can look at that and we can follow them and we can do longitudinal studies and we can show that most people that go to Harvard didn't come from a fucking trailer park in West Virginia. They came from some rich fucking family that lives in some well-off, white neighborhood.
Okay, so if that's the case, then why is the conversation largely based around Black people and not just Americans in general?
Because Americans in general weren't enslaved, and Americans in general weren't discriminated against with policies like redlining, and Americans
why do you keep going back to slavery?
Because it's unique to Black people's history in the United States.
So what?
So what? Because it impacts everything. When I ask you where you're from, you can smugly say West Virginia. You have no fucking idea what country your family comes from. It's a unique issue that Black people face in the United States.
You said your mom came from Cuba. Where did she come before Cuba?
I don't know, but I bet if I go through her fucking family
Exactly, my
history,
point.
I can find. That's not exactly the point. I'm different because I don't give a fuck. I don't even know where in Europe my dad came from. So for me personally, I don't really care.
So if you don't care, why should I care?
Because I'm exceptional, and I'm an exception to the
Why
rule.
are you exceptional? Why are you?
I don't know why
exceptional?
people
am
are
I not
exceptional. I make $250K a year playing fucking video games. I don't think everybody can do the same shit that I do.
Why
But
are you exceptional and why am I not exceptional?
you're
can
probably
say-
exceptional as
if
well. You have
can
a lot.
say,
Your
sir,
YouTube is bigger than mine.
if-
I'm sure
if
you're
you can-
exceptional as well.
If you can say that it doesn't matter where you come from in Europe, then why does it matter where I quote unquote come from in Africa?
Because for the
Is that a
general
double standard?
person, it doesn't work that way. Generally, people like to celebrate their ancestry. Generally, people
So
like.
why grill me about where I come from and then say, oh, you smugly can say from West Virginia, but you could say, oh, I'm from Cuba and I don't care where I came from and it's okay.
Because
It's a
I'm
double
pointing
standard.
to a fundamental difference between black people and white people in the United States. That black people face a special set
We're
of
talking
challenges.
about me and you. You tried to grill me
I don't
about,
care. No,
oh,
I'm-
you
because I'm-
smugly say you came from West Virginia, but you say you from Cuba, and that's okay. You don't have to know your European ancestry, but I gotta know my so-called African ancestry. Doesn't make any sense.
We're not having a conversation just about you and me. That would be a pointless conversation. I was
I'm
doing
talking
it
to
to
you right now.
illustrate the broader point. Just because you're talking to me doesn't mean you're only having a conversation
you said
about
to
me.
me, I smugly said I'm from West Virginia, like that's somehow a problem.
Because I was using it to illustrate the point that
you
that I
you
was.
can say you from Cuba, and that's okay.
I'm illustrating the point that
I think
Africa.
that I've proven that point.
I can't even finish a sentence. Wait,
I know you like that one. I know I did that just for you, man. I did it just for you.
Listen, what I'm saying is that I can illustrate the point that African Americans in the United States have an incredibly unique background that's not comparable to rich Chinese people that come here, that's not comparable to Irishmen or Italians that immigrate here, that is very unique to the black
By the
experience.
way, most Asians that come here are not just super rich. I mean, that's just not what it is. I mean, a lot of Asians come here with nothing in their pocket or little to nothing. They might, give up their whole life savings to get over here. And especially like people that come from Southeast Asia, like a lot of
Do you think that the
Filipinos, they
average
come over
Chinese farmer has a savings to give up to make an international journey to the United States? Do you know how much
Well,
money
I
it
don't-
takes
I
for
don't
an
know about
average?
it.
You don't know because you're incredibly fucking out of
I
touch
didn't-
with how a
you
super
didn't-
fuck
you didn't
person
let me
can
finish.
be.
You didn't let me finish. You talking about
Okay.
you interrupted you. You interrupted me.
Oh my
now
bad.
I don't know about the average individual Chinese farmer. What about a whole family? Like if you got grandma, dad, mom, everybody else. I mean, how much you think people that own these Chinese food restaurants have before they come over here? You think they just super rich, elite people that come over here and start up a Chinese restaurant in the ghetto? Come on, man. Think about it for a moment.
I
When
do.
say
I don't have to
Asians-
think about it very
and
long
when
at
I say
all. When you
Asians,
make
I
a
don't just mean people that
trans-Pacific
come from
journey,
China.
when you make
And
a
when I say
trans-Pacific,
Asians, sir, and when I say Asians, I don't just mean Chinese. I also mean people that come from Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and also people that come from the Indian subcontinent, not just Chinese people. So I think you just need to realize who the people are. They're not just all rich or middle class people that come from China. Yes, it is.
so
an
you
expensive
think that
trip.
the average lower class person in fucking Cambodia can make a trans-Pacific flight with their entire family and come to the United States?
I mean, not the average person, but some of them.
Not the average person? Okay, so not even the average person can. So you've already come over to my argument. So these are people that are probably well off.
The average person may not be able to, but some of them should. Some of them could be, because if you do it as an entire family, like you're talking about an individual, one guy is just farming and he has his own income. But what if he has like his whole family? You got like 15 people that all put the money together, their whole life savings to come over here. I mean, think about it. If you see some of these Chinese,
Stop. You think that
think about
15
it.
average poor people in the Southeast Asian region can pool their money together and get all 15
I didn't say
of
that
them?
they could. I didn't say that they most certainly would be able to without a doubt, but I'm saying it's not impossible for that to happen. Are you saying it's impossible for that to happen?
No, because that's a dumb
All right, then,
statement.
that's my point.
Wait, no, that's not their point. The point is
That is
that
my point.
many Asians
That's
that
my
come
point,
over
that
here
I
from
think-
that region are already selected from the most wealthy people. Not all super elite rich, but at least upper middle class to be able to afford trans-Pacific flights and bring your whole fucking family over here from Cambodia or the Philippines or Singapore or China or South Korea.
So you think that these people that own like they work in the 7-Eleven, Chinese food stores, stuff like that, or they happen to be a janitor or something like that, you think they all were just super
I didn't
rich,
say
elite
all
people?
of them, but I think that generally, yes, a lot of them that immigrate are very wealthy. Yes.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for somebody that's wealthy in their country to come over here and work in a Chinese food store and be in the whole store all day, 7 days a week, 24. I mean, no sense.
What about
If
all
they're
the
wealthy-
Chinese
if
people
they're
that come over
wealthy-
here to go to our like really expensive schools? Do you think these people are just poor people that come over and they send their kids to like some of the most prestigious schools
Well,
in the world?
if you can go to an expensive school, obviously you have money, but that's not.
Okay, that's
the
where a lot of our fucking
totality.
Chinese immigration comes
That's
from.
not-
Are people coming here for education?
That's not the totality of anybody. That's not the totality of immigrants that come from Asia, and Asia is not just China. So why do you just keep mentioning China?
Because Chinese people are like some of the highest representations of Southeast Asia immigration that we get here, and a lot of them come here for education.
Okay, I mean,
Also, do you think that
really
owning like a food store or owning a 7-Eleven, that this is something that like a cheap person can do? You realize that like even though you're working hard, like you're pretty wealthy if you own a fucking store like that, right?
I mean, you have money after a certain period of time, but that doesn't mean that you were here, that you came here with that money. Beauty supply stores, Chinese food stores.
Still nervous about buying a house?
Come on.
Hold on one second. Nearly half of immigrants enter the U.S. with a college degree. Do you think that if you're entering the U.S. with a college degree from a Southeast Asian country, do you think that you're part of the poorer class, the middle class, or probably part of the better, wealthier class?
I mean, I have no idea of knowing just because of the college degree, because the question has to be asked, where did they get the college degree from? And that's only half. What about the other half? I mean, if they got the degree from like Harvard or Yale, it's different than getting it from some local college in Cambodia, isn't it?
So, do you think that most people in so if I were to go and look up stats for like percentages of people with college degrees in Cambodia, do you think that the vast majority of them have college degrees?
I have no clue.
Okay, then why are you making these arguments that these people are all coming over here poor and destitute?
I didn't say they were all coming over here poor and destitute. I'm just saying that your argument about rich people from China doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because not everybody that comes over here has a bunch of money. That's the point.
Not everybody. People, I'm not saying everybody.
You got rich, poor, middle class, everybody. It's not just one kind of person that's coming over here. That's the point that I'm making.
All right.
And I think that we can agree on that.
No, we definitely can't. Listen,
so,
I'm going to make
all just one kind of person?
I think that this is something that's super commonly talked about, because racist people love to point at Chinese people to point to how stupid black people are. Is they'll say, well, look, Chinese people are all doing really well. Why do black people make all these excuses? Blah, 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 blah. And you play into their hands beautifully, by the way. Congratulations for that. And what actually happens is when you break down, you totally are, and you do it all the time, whether you acknowledge it or not.
Explain to me how I do that.
Sure. Yesterday, or the last time we had a conversation, when I gave you reason after reason after reason after reason why black people are fucked in the U.S., and you kept saying, no. And then at the end, when I asked you, well, why do black people make such horrible fucking decisions? Your answer was, I don't know why they do it. And that's where the race realist steps in and goes, thanks you, ABL, for making the argument for me. You must be one of the higher IQ black people, because most of them are 85 IQ average. It's a genetic thing. That's what you made the argument for.
I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't say nothing about that.
But you set up the conclusion perfectly.
How can I say I don't know, and then you say this whole race realism argument?
Because you reject every single argument that I've given you that's super well studied. The lead thing is like really well studied. The redlining thing is really well studied.
The points that I made were talking about culture, talking about incentive.
Where do you think culture comes from? Do black people, are they like born with worse culture than white people? What do you mean by that?
Well, no, the culture, it gets a lot of people. Okay, I'll explain culture. I'll explain where the culture comes from. It just comes from living in society. You go to school and you're taught a certain thing about yourself. And like I told you about people like yourself that get into academia, and not you specifically, but people like yourself with your mentality, this whole defeatist mentality of, well, since you're black, you're going to be automatically less than, you're not going to be doing as well as whites. This kind of mentality is given to children at a young age, and they tend to believe it. So then when you have all these incentives of welfare, not, affirmative action, which artificially places us in programs where we shouldn't be. We could be in a better program that's best suited for us. We could succeed, but we're getting put artificially into programs that don't work well for us. All these things, all these incentives make a culture where you're just not going to put that extra effort into it. And then you got a lot of parents that aren't really fit to parent. And a lot of that is subsidized by the welfare culture, the welfare state. People are paid oftentimes to be, what's the word I'm looking for? To be kind of irresponsible parents. By not having a husband in the house before they deliver a child. And when that child is growing up, they're not going to have a father. They're more likely, according to Barack Obama, to have all kind of problems that lead them to the criminal justice system that also affect them in the education. They're not getting proper education at their house because they don't have a two-parent household. The mom can't be there to teach them. All these things lead to a negative culture. And then when they grow up, people like yourself get into the workplace, and then they tell them, oh, it's okay that you can behave this way. This is why a lot of these things go on. So when you ask the question, oh, why do blacks on average make bad decisions and whites don't. You got to point towards the kind of culture that puts us into these situations, bullies us into the situation, and incentivizes the situation.
Okay,
does it make any sense to you?
Yeah, it sounds to me like you think that black people are too stupid to get over liberals telling them that they should just be lazy. Holy shit! You're the bigotry of low expectations.
No.
Yeah, you just gave me a whole spiel on why welfare incentivized black people to make bad decisions. Liberal academia told black people they were dumb, and you're the one that thinks that black people are too stupid to rise above what liberals tell them. Oh my God, I understand it all now. It's not the fact that the schools are shit. No, it's not the fact that a lot of these people are like 50 kids to one teacher. It's not the fact that in a lot of these places the fucking gyms don't even work because they're flooded with water. It's actually liberals telling them that they can't succeed.
When you're a child, you don't know any better. So you can't say, oh, because I said that it's a lot of incentives and
wait. So why can't black parents just tell them better things? What's wrong with black parents?
It's a whole culture. You got a lot of people that
the culture that comes from the bigotry of low liberal expectations, and you have the bigotry of low expectations.
Let me just finish the point. Let me just finish the point. You're very excited.
I'm not excited, sir. I would like to point out that you literally just that's what you did. Do you acknowledge that you just did that? You just gave a whole bunch of reasons why black people are doing bad, and your reasons were essentially because liberals empowered them to do bad. So you've got low expectations that black people will perform badly if liberals give them an excuse to. Sir, you just had the bigotry of low expectations.
No.
Sir, I think I've proven my point. I would like to move on to the NWA now, a rap group. Why do you think they had
reasons why these things are going on? I mean, you could try to like be funny and that's fine.
Well, the thing is that like my reasons are like really well researched. We should have like
when you are a child, you don't know any better. If you are a child and you're around the English language, you're gonna know English. It's gonna be more difficult for you to get into a second language when you get older, because when you are a blank slate, what was impressed upon you was the English language. So it comes from when you are a child. I mean, I experienced the same thing. If you're around an environment that's all this one kind of thing pressed upon you day after day, from the time you can remember that you had your first word or whatever it is, your first memory as a human being, from that time all throughout your whole life, in the workplace, academia, just in your general surroundings, everywhere it surrounds you, it can be very difficult for you to make a decision that's not that.
Wait, I totally agree. It's very simple. I totally agree with everything you just said.
So my point is,
if you have an environment, wait, sir, please let me. If you have an environment where your entire fucking life, you're constantly told that you're a piece of shit, that people treat you like a piece of shit, that police come down on you harder, that your family life is fucked because you might be coming from a single parent household, that your housing is super fucked, that all of this stuff plays into making you like a really hard person, that makes it really hard for you to make good decisions. I totally agree that could fuck your life. I agree with 100% of everything you just said.
You're making points that I did not make. I didn't say anything about police. I didn't say anything about.
You said your environment. Police are part of your environment, are they not?
I didn't say police. I'm talking about people that influence you to do things. I'm talking about your immediate, like your parents. That's the main thing, and then also your people that educate you.
Okay. So coming from a single parent household can have bad impacts. Going to a really fucked up school can have bad impacts. Do we agree with that?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a bad school.
How about like a school that's severely fucking underfunded, that doesn't have enough teachers available for the students, and that has a lot of funding?
The funding of a school isn't really that important.
So if a school can't afford air conditioning for its students, you don't think that's very important?
I mean, I went to a school like that. It didn't have AC, and it didn't affect me like that because it wasn't really.
Well,
a big
I know
deal.
20. I have 20 black friends that went to schools without air conditionings, and it really affected them.
Did. Now I'm gonna tell you something.
Oh, excuse me, sir. Sir, are you saying I didn't have 20 black friends that went to schools? Okay, that didn't have AC?
I said I'm sure that you did, but I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
Detroit has one of the most. How can I rephrase this? Detroit spends one of the most per pupil in the United States. They spend like $14,000 per student. Yet a large portion of the kids that go through the school system in Detroit can't read. So if you're talking about schools being underfunded, why do they spend so much money per student, yet a lot of the kids can't read at the end of the day? Why is that so?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of complicated reasons. I'm sure there's a lot of shit that goes into educating a student. That's not just money. Every time I give you like one reason.
We talking about.
No. Stop. Hold on. Excuse me, sir. I need to finish this point. This is very frustrating when I argue with a conservative. Is that every time I give you one reason, you try to make it sound like that could be the only fucking reason, and it's very fucking frustrating. No.
I'm just debunking that particular reason.
But it's not. But we can all agree that having more money as opposed to having less money is probably good in general. Now, I'm sure that there are reasons why that's not the only factor. For instance, if I
didn't
throw...
say it was.
Okay, but you just said that you debunked that reason, when that's clearly not true. If I look at schools in my own city, okay, well, I'm using an anecdote here, but I'm willing to bet in general that if I find countries that invest more in their education, they probably have better outcomes than countries that invest less in their education. Now, that doesn't necessarily...
Why is that not true in Detroit?
I'm probably for a plethora of reasons. There are a lot more things going on than just the funding. It's just one issue. Family life can be another issue.
We agree.
Agree on what?
We agree that it's not just about the money. So when you say...
I never said it was just about the money. I gave you one reason, and you jumped on it like it's the only reason. You do this with every single point I bring up.
You said that if you can look at a bunch of schools that have good funding, then that'll probably indicate a better outcome, right?
I said in general, that's probably true. In general, yeah. But I don't know where the money in the Detroit schools go. It's possible that a lot of it is embezzled. It's possible that some Detroit schools get a lot of money and other Detroit schools don't. I don't know. I have to look more into it. I'll add Detroit schools to my list. Detroit schools.
Wouldn't it make sense to say that aside from having the school be better funded, it should be better managed and operated?
Yeah, that's probably true too. Not the most.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be the most part, but it's not the only factor.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you on that.
Sure. So if there are Detroit schools, and we can go and watch videos of it right now, if there are Detroit schools that don't have access to AC, which there are studies that show that kids learning in uncomfortable environments have worse outcomes than kids that don't, right? And we can go and look these up if you don't believe me. I don't know if you do or not. But that if I can show that there are schools that can't afford air conditioners, that don't have functional gyms that are flooded and don't work, right? That these gyms are probably producing worse outcomes for their children than gyms that are functional.
I mean, a gym. I mean, do you need a gym to actually have an education?
It probably helps, yeah.
How can the gym help you with education?
Because it gives you more extracurricular activities to do instead of getting in trouble. That's why white kids don't deal drugs as much as some black kids, or have as many kids out of wedlock. This is like a pretty well accepted. What do you mean? If you've got a million things to do after school, if I can go, why do you think people in poor countries have so many fucking kids all the time, right? This is part of the thing that goes into it. The only thing you have for recreation is sex. If I've got an after school fucking jazz club, and then after that I go to basketball practice, and then I go home and I play my fucking PlayStation, I've got a million recreational things to do at the end of the day. If I have nothing to do,
a lot of times, the basketball court, people get shot at. I'm for real. I mean, I'm serious. So I mean, I think that's kind of an excuse.
So you think that we shouldn't have gyms in the United States because some people get shot in basketball courts?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying.
That's kind of what you implied, my dude. Like,
I'm not talking about if you're saying the gym, that's like gonna help with education. I mean, come on, don't make no sense, man. Gym is just something fun to do.
Yeah, that's important. Having fun things this is the thing, dude. Like, so it's not
mean that it's gonna help with your education.
It totally can. Being a more holistic person, having things to do, having ways to get along with your class.
Be for real.
Oh, fuck, dude. You're such a piece of shit. Like, you're legitimately like an evil fucking person. Like,
I'm evil because I'm just laughing at things that you're saying that's going to hurt the black community.
You're
I'm black,
evil
and I know,
because you're being so fucking dismissive of things that are so important to kids. Having a place to play that's safe, that's inside of a school, that's protected, that you can play with your fellow classmates out without worrying about shit getting fucked up. Yeah, I think that's really important for kids.
Because I know that you don't know what you're talking about.
Because some people get shot in basketball courts, in the immortal words of ABL, of Anthony, whatever, Brian Logan or whatever. Like, that's the argument you want to go with there, and then say that I'm being the.
It's funny how you're trying to like frame our arguments. I like that.
I'm just quoting back at you what you said to me.
No, I didn't say that. Look. At the end of the day, your basketball court ain't gonna help you with no education, man. I know,
of course it will. Every little thing.
No,
you're doing it again. You see how you take one thing I say and you make it sound like that's the be all and end all. Just giving kids basketball courts isn't going to be enough to help. It's not
gonna help. It ain't gonna do nothing. It's just a thing to do. It's not gonna help with education.
Why not? You don't think that physical education or kids being active?
In the black community, we need to be focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic, not basketball.
Extracurricular shit helps people, dude. It helps people. Fucking black women are insanely fucking obese in the United States right now, more than any other group of people. And getting physical activity and physical exercise and shit is an important part of staying healthy, and it gives kids something to do and stay out of trouble and ways to socialize with their friends.
Well, the obesity is more about just a diet.
Why do black women have worse diets than white people?
I mean, I'm not really sure you could say that.
I can say that because if you want right now,
I'm in
obesity.
I'm in the South right now, and you got a lot of obesity in general, black, white, whatever.
Obesity, black women, United States. I guarantee you that obese black women are more obese than any other group in the United States right now. Like,
well, I mean, why is that?
Well, you tell me. I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me. You just want to bring it up. I don't know.
I don't know. It probably goes into a lot of socioeconomic factors. Poor people tend to be.
Bring it up.
Okay, because I can make educated guesses based on things that I do know that are true, right? People in worse socioeconomic conditions
Make an educated guess.
Sure. People in worse socioeconomic conditions tend to make worse decisions about their diet, tend to have worse access to healthy food, tend to have less time to procure healthy food. That would be my guess. And black people are more likely to be in worse socioeconomic conditions, so they're probably making worse decisions in general about their food.
Do you see any fat people in third world countries where they have like no access to really good food? Where they eating mud pies and stuff like that in Haiti? Do you see any fat people?
Holy fuck. Do you think that poor people in Haiti live the same life as poor people in the US?
You talking about access to food and income.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking about people that have very low income and access to very bad food.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about first world people in the United States. Obviously, a poor person in fucking Ethiopia is not going to be obese. Like,
but you said poverty and not having access to good food.
I'm sorry. I was speaking in general in the United States. Sir, I was very clearly talking about the United States, not poor people that don't have access to food, period.
But why is it different in the third world country?
Because our standards of living in the West are higher than they are in fucking sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh, okay. So we're richer than them over there, right?
Yes.
So a person in the United States is generally richer than most of the world.
Yes. But I know where you're going, but that's not how that works. Being poor in one country, just because you're wealthier than someone else in another country, isn't automatically going to change your outcomes. Well,
I think the problem with obesity is access to too much food.
Okay, well then why do black women suffer this more than any other group of people?
Well, I'm not really sure you could say that with 100% certainty, especially.
Okay, we can go into the data if you want on this one. Non-Hispanic black women have an 82% overweight or obese index. Okay.
I think it's more just about the region that people live in, because where I'm at in the South, which is where the majority of black folks live, you got a lot of obesity in general, and it's not just a black thing or white thing. It's people in general in the South tend to have a certain diet.
So you think that if I go through data for obese people in Texas, that all white people are going to be just as obese as all black people? Or
I didn't say that. I'm just talking about in the South, you have a problem with obesity. Not everybody in the South is obese, but you have much more of a problem with obesity here in Tennessee than you do like in the West Coast, California or whatever. And then a lot of black folks that live in the West Coast, California and other places come from the South, maybe like a generation or two removed. So they still have some of the same eating habits that they developed in the South.
I think it's fascinating that you will trace ancestry to justify eating habits, but if I do it with generational wealth, you are totally against that. That's fascinating to me. So your argument, what you just said, is that people can move from Texas to the West Coast and take their bad eating habits with them, and that's why black people are fat all over the country, and maybe they even give that to their kids. But if your family...
You said it.
Okay, do you think that fat parents are more likely to have fat children? Yes or no? And we can look up the data right now on that. Careful how you answer. Are fat
probably
people...
So.
Okay, so you would probably agree with the statement that a fat black lady from Texas that moves to California is probably more likely to have a fat black kid, right?
Probably so.
So if you agree with all of that, why is it so hard for me to get you on board with things like generational wealth? That if your family was negatively impacted by redlining, there's a good chance that your parents are going to be poor and that you'll probably be poor. Why is that argument so hard to get you on?
Because it's a defeatist type of attitude. Just like I wouldn't tell a kid that, oh, because your mom's fat, you're going to be fat too. What we should be doing is trying to get the kids on a better eating program, not just say, oh, because your mom is fat, you're going to be fat, and then there's no hope.
But getting them on a better program, we have to acknowledge the problem. So I shot you a link right now. This is the obesity data for Tennessee, okay? In Tennessee, 31% of white people are obese, not fat, obese, okay? 45% of black people are obese. This is in Tennessee. It's in the same state. Why are black people fatter than white people?
I don't know. It's not that big of a difference, really. 31, 45. I mean, you talking about what?
That's 10%? Not that big. That's a 50% increase. What do you mean that's not a big deal?
It's not that big of a deal. Like the way you're trying to make it.
A 50% increase isn't a big deal to you?
Hold on, I can't even really see. You said it was what for whites?
31% of white people are obese. 45% of black people are obese.
31 versus 45 is not that big of a deal.
It's a 50% increase from one group to the next.
It's not that big of a deal. I mean, you can be dramatic with how you're saying it, but it ain't that big of a deal. You still got too many fat whites and too many fat blacks at the end of the day.
But it's clearly impacting black people more than white people. You don't think that points to a deeper problem?
I mean, what is the problem? I don't know why there's a difference in the percentage. I mean, how is it? It's not necessarily going to be equal. I mean, but why is the percentage different?
Let's say that you made 40K a year, and or let's say every black family made 40K a year, and every white family made 60K a year. Do you think that's a big deal, or do you think that's just whatever? It's not a big difference. That $40,000 and $60,000 a year isn't a big difference.
It depends on where you live. It depends
Obviously. Let's say that your paycheck right now could be $4,000 or $6,000 a month. Do you think that it would change much if it was $6,000 a month against $4,000 a month?
It depends on where I live. If I go to DC, from like here, obviously a lower cost of living. If I go to DC, it'd be different. I don't understand what you're trying to get at. Like, just get to the point.
That if I were to talk to anybody that does like epidemiology or any type of statistical analysis, and I were to say, well, 50% difference between groups, it's not a big deal, they would laugh at me and they would hang up on me. That it would be like the most absurd, like I would be laughed out of any conversation if somebody were to,
That's
if
their
I were
opinion,
to,
and that's my opinion.
that's not
So
an
what?
opinion, it's academics. What do you mean it's an opinion?
My opinion is not, it's not that big of a deal. That's my opinion. They have their opinion, and that's fine.
is like, is every scientific fact or like data, is that like all like an opinion to you, or?
Nah, I didn't say it was. I just said my opinion was that it's not that big a deal. That's not scientific data. That's not scientific fact. That's just how I feel about the numbers that you presented. So why conflate things that are not the same? I mean, come on.
Because it's a really big disparity between groups, and that should be something that interests you a lot. That if black people have 50% greater occurrences of obesity than white people, that should give you pause. You should be like, wow, that's a significant difference.
At the end of the day, I think that you got a problem with obesity in Tennessee in general.
That doesn't discredit what I just said.
The differences in races don't alarm me as much as the issue with obesity that's too much for both groups.
What if it was 90% and 20%?
What if it ain't? So why are we talking about hypotheticals?
I'm curious what difference would make you think like, oh wow, there's some fuck shit going on here. Like
I would be like, okay, that's a big difference. I wonder why. But that's not where we at.
Okay,
right
but
now.
like, so what about like 50 and 20? Would that be a big difference or no?
I mean, these questions don't make any sense. We're not talking about reality.
What about 46 and 29?
Now you're just being silly.
I'm being silly.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
It's been real, man, as always.
Oh man. Okay. Okay, wait, hold on. Are you still here?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to write down some of the major things we disagree on. So you don't think redlining existed in terms of racial profiling, right?
I think it was largely based on credit.
Okay. Largely based on credit. You think that most, like, well, I'll say SEA, so Southeast Asian immigrants that come over do you think most of them are poor, most of them are middle class, most of them are wealthy?
I think there's a mix. I'm not really sure what the numbers are.
Okay, but when you just say mix,
if
if like 2% are poor and 98% are wealthy, that would not be what you're selling. It seems like you're trying to tell me that a good chunk of them are poor.
Nah, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I know that they're not all the same. I know they're not just all rich.
Okay, if you had to guess, I'm not trying to hold your super ultra, I don't want you to, but if you had to guess, like how many that come over are poor versus wealthy? Do you think it's like a 50-50 or like a 10-90 or like what?
It's probably a little bit more that have some money versus don't, but I'm not really sure about wealthy. What would you consider wealthy? Like, what do you consider wealthy?
Wealthy is in when they come over to the United States, they can send their children to universities. They never have to struggle paycheck to paycheck. Like they're in like an they would come from like the top fifth percentile of wealth in their country.
But what does that actually mean as far as a number?
It means that they were probably really successful in their country more than what do you mean by a number?
Like a dollar amount.
I don't fucking know what
the
dollar amount would be. Whatever the top 5% of the median income in China is.
It's kind of a loose thing to get me to commit to, so I can't really.
It's pretty. Okay, well, I'll look at this. You think that Detroit schools prove more money does not equal better outcomes, right? That Detroit wastes money on kids in school or something, or?
Well,
hey,
I don't
Anthony,
say that it proves it
really
outright. I'm just saying that you can look at
Lowell.
examples of when a lot of money is spent in education and it doesn't necessarily equal a positive outcome. You can also look at Newark, New Jersey.
Okay, you say that gyms don't matter for kids' education. What other claims do we disagree on? I just want to read about all of this. Do you remember any other big claims we disagree on? Do you want to talk about if the KKK like killed black people or not, or do you like in general agree that the KKK was probably bad for black people? Do you contest that?
No,
point?
they were a terrorist organization, but just because they were around doesn't mean that black people were not able to succeed and live happy lives.
Oh, you think black people were better off in the 50s than today?
I think that by most metrics you can measure, the Black community was performing better, but it's not because it was during that time. It just happened to be that those numbers existed then.
Okay. Okay. Any other big things we disagreed on, or?
That's probably about it that I can think of right now.
All right. At some point in the future, I'll try to contact you and we'll come back and we'll discuss these things. Okay. I'll try to dig up data on this. I would encourage you to do so as well, so that it's not super one-sided, but you can do what you want. It's a free country. Make your choice. Did we disagree on anything about the obesity thing?
I think we both agree that obesity is a problem, but I think we disagree on who it affects more, and I don't think we came to a conclusion as to why it affects certain people more than others.
You don't think it's a big deal that black people are so much more obese than white people, right?
I mean, you're making it be so much more. I think the bigger issue is that you get a lot of obese whites and a lot of obese blacks. I think obesity in general is an issue in America, and it shouldn't be this racial thing that is, that is the focus. I think it's more about just people in general having a problem with health.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I've recorded all of this. If I were to ask you to find an educated person to moderate our next conversation, do you think you could do that, or are you opposed to that?
I don't know. Maybe. I'll see what I can dig up.
All right, okay. Well, listen, dude, I bully you a lot on stream and off stream, but I do appreciate the conversation, so I'm sorry if I come off as very mean. Obviously, we disagree quite a bit, and it triggers the fuck out of me, but I appreciate you coming on to talk, buddy.
No problem, man. Appreciate you.
Yep. All right. Bye. Steven, you should file for a 501c3.
Steven, you should file for a 501c3 cause I'm pretty sure these debates qualify as a service in a non-profit organization for special needs awareness in the YouTube community. This was gold. Love you.
Thanks, buddy.